welcome to yet another episode of Story Talkies. Today, we are privileged to have a lady who seems to have all the answers. In fact, the kind of laurels that she has tell us so. She has been, she has won BBC Mastermind not once but twice, and she runs a very successful costume jewelry business and touchstone jewelry, and I believe her jewelry must have touched many hearts, not just the wardrobes. And more importantly, she is a storyteller, and for a very difficult audience, that is the children. So we are very proud to have Archana with us in this conversation. Welcome, Archana, and thank you for agreeing to speak to us.
Lovely to be here, Nidhi. It's always a pleasure to reach out, especially to children. So glad to be here.
At the beginning of the conversation, Archana, I would like to know from you that you started quizzing at a very early age, and then you went on to win Mastermind and Champions of Champion in Mastermind. And I understand that's a passion that you carry even today. How much of this inquisitiveness that drives start from the children to as we carry forward actually helps us become the person that we are, helps us keep thinking, looking for new things, and help us in becoming what we do?
In my family background, my father was a great reader. So we always had, hundreds of books lying around at home. And besides that, we would go for theater and music programs and dance programs and travel. There was a great curiosity and a great desire to learn things, which was there in the family. Now, this is something, we have 5 sisters. I was the oldest. So all of us are readers. Some of us more than others, of course, in a family, there are a lot of differences. But I think my favorite thing to do was read. And I can safely say I'm in my 50s now. Since I started reading at the age of 7 or 8, when I could read books, I have read a book a day all my life. So it's not, say in a year, it's not necessarily that every day I read the book, but in a year I would read 300 to 400 books easily. So this is something I have done through school, through college, through the grueling years of IIM. I was in IIM Ahmedabad, and they really stress you. So this is something which this reading, even now through business, through flow, through Ficky Ladies organization, which with the year I was president, it was, I think, the hardest I've worked in my life. But through that, because I think for me, it's as essential as breathing. If for a week or 10 days, there is some reason and I can't, it's like, it's very difficult for me if I don't get to read. So this is something. Then obviously, if you're reading many things from many countries about, all different subjects, I can read anything on any subject whatsoever. It has to influence the person you become. One is that when you look at something, if I'm looking at a plant, I know something about that plant. I may know that, okay, the Portuguese got it in 1500 from Peru or whatever it is. So it's not everything you look at or see has a resonance around it, has an aura around it, has a history and a story around it. There is nothing like you're talking about storytelling. This whole thing is about stories and how much, I love them. History itself, it's the same word as story, right? It's just in French, the word for story is history, histoire. So it was, there is a great desire that then got created to learn and also to share the knowledge. And of course, quizzing is great fun because the way we quiz in India, it's not even as simple as which is the tallest building in the world or things like that. There are many, the kind of questions which are there. There are many clues. You use your other knowledge, and it's a cross between uh, a puzzle, but to solve that puzzle, you need to use your knowledge. I was in Lady Shri Ram College, LSR, and we would go for these quizzes, and we'd write the prelims and never get onto the stage for the final. And we still kept going, quiz after quiz after quiz after quiz. So that means it's truly you like it. You're not doing well in it. It's embarrassing, all of that. And but then by the second year, we started getting onto the stage, and by the third year, we started getting first, second, third, or something. And then that is something that has continued, and I have kept it up as a hobby all through. I still quiz informally. I take part in online quizzes, and for like once a week or once in 2 weeks, I still quiz. So it's something that has given me great pleasure and great enjoyment. And if you ask why, it's very difficult to answer.
All that reading and all that knowledge and all that stories that you gathered, now you're channeling it out for a very, very difficult, at the same time, very important uh, the reader segment, which is children, knowing that the attention span is coming down, knowing that the books are not as valued or as treasured as they used to be, because everything is available online. You have stories, you have a history, you have anything that you want is available online. In that environment, you are writing books for children, and that too on history. Now, so is it a conscious choice?
I always loved telling children's stories, and anyone. I mean, as I said, I love learning, and I love telling the fascinating things I learned to people I know. And what is interesting is that at one IIM get together, I was telling them, my batchmates, on our 25th get together, we were all pretty old by then. I was telling them just about the Indian calendar and the origin and what is fascinating about it. And one of them just said that, Archana, you need to do something about it. You have to think in terms also of a legacy and about sharing this. It's all right that we're sitting on the steps and, we get to hear these stories, but you need to get it. You need to get it out to a much larger audience, which is when I thought, yes, I would love to, I have a pretty deep knowledge of Indian history. And as a quizzer, there's a phrase in Shakespeare, you're a picker up of unconsidered trifles. You like little tidbits which are interesting, which are not normally known. So that's when, I approached the publisher and we did History of India for Children, which is a comprehensive history. It covers all that a history normally covers, the political bit, the kings and all. But besides that, it has a lot of anecdotes and stories and tales and contemporary literature and food, makeup, clothes, what people who came saw. So it's unusual in that sense that, and this is something which you said is a difficult audience. There has to be something when you're reading a book, what are the kind of books that I liked very much? There were stories which had, there were books which had surprising bits of knowledge. So that is one thing. Then there were books which had humor. I think humor is very important. We can't, especially for children, until they get involved with the book, they won't read it. You see, an older person, you can force them to read things, but I don't want to write a book which somebody has to be forced to read because it's good for them. So a factor in the storytelling has always been, and this is true of storytellers always, there has to be an angle of amazement when you're hearing it. There has to be an angle of surprise and um, an element of humor. And this is something, again, which you realize that, okay, history is best learned as stories, because history is where my passion and forte is. So this History Hunters. So I write with my sister, Shruti Garodia. We co-write, and she's very witty. Also, she's very witty. She's got a very sharp sense of humor. So if this Chandragupta Maurya and the Greek Onslaught, that's our new book. Um, we are telling history through time travel of current day children. And these are children who are 11, 12, 13, living in modern day Goa. Children like, the kind of people we would know and with whom children can identify. People who'd be reading an English book would be able to identify with those children. And then they go back and then they see the past with a modern person's eyes, and not they're children. They don't know, they're not historians. So they see things, they find some things unusual, they're surprised by things. And if the child is placing themselves, if the child is seeing that world through these other children's eyes, then the impact is far more than if you just read a bald, description of what happened. So this is because as a child, I used to love historical novels. I used to love these time travel novels. I think all of us have imagined ourselves in the past. What would it be like to meet, I don't know, Akbar? What would it be like to meet Birbal? So these are things that we have. So while there is an element that you want to learn the history, but it has come to you with stories, with characters, with surprise, with humor. And that's the way I think that you can get people to, read it and enjoy it and retain it in a very easy way. You don't have to learn. You go and see a movie, you see Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. Nobody has to make you learn that story. You'll know it even 10 years later, somebody asks you, you'll know what happened and what everything looked like. So that, I think, is the importance of, in writing, the element of uh, stories and well told stories. Stories are, I think, you see, historically, there have always been, people would gather around to listen to stories. As humans, we love listening to stories.
What you're saying is that one is that you're writing to the audience, because this is the audience that would be consuming these stories. You are putting the story in the context, because you're making them visualize how it would be, and you are giving them story wrapped in fun and humor and surprises and curiosity, something that will make them not just read but retain the story, as you said, right? So that's a very interesting angle to write. And taking that this whole storytelling to business. Now the business that you are in is is talking to consumers directly, right? Is about costume jewelry, and it each piece, I'm sure, has a story. So as women, like when we go and buy a piece of jewelry, we just don't buy a red stone stud, right? We buy whether it is matching, it is having its aura. So there's a tale around it. So how do you, and apart from that, when you're taking the product to different countries, when you're building your marketing plans, when you're creating campaigns, how do you take business, how do you marry storytelling and business? There is an overlap, right?
We are the first people to create a brand in the field of costume jewelry. We started our brand in 1996, at which point, nobody was actually using costume jewelry. And the first time we went to, department stores like Ebony and Shoppers Stop and all, where we started having a kiosk and retail outlets, they were just, nakli jewelry, shadi mein, who will wear it? That whole concept was that who will wear fake jewelry? People could not access that jewelry because if it's only available in gold, How many sets can you afford to have? How many pieces of jewelry can each an average person afford to have? But if you create costume jewelry, then you can access that beauty, you can access that design, you can access that piece of your heritage and your culture, and you can wear it. So that was also a focus area for us. So we went through historical design books and Mughal designs and Kolhapur and Rajasthani, and every region has its own design. We tried to do collections in each of those regions, so that of that regional style, so that people can access it. And then, as you said, each one of those things comes with a story. So now that we are now digital first, and we basically sell directly online through Amazon and other mechanisms all over the world. We're probably selling in more than 100 countries right now. With each listing, you have the story. You have the story of the history of the piece. You have, quite often, if it is done by karigars in a particular area, then a story of those karigars and the artisans. And there sometimes we share techniques of manufacturing if it's a very handcrafted manufacturing, and that makes, I think, each piece special, because it comes with all that. As I said, everything you look at has an aura around it. It comes with that.
So this allows, therefore, the your buyers, your customers, to actually get closer to that piece, as against just buying a piece from a website, or just picking up a jewelry for a particular party or something. They start your jewelry then, because of the story, it starts having a character of its own, isn't it?
Yes.
My last question to you, Archana, is about how would you want to pass on this technique of storytelling? How you are writing books, so you are involved in women empowerment. You are running a business, so you wear multiple hats. I'm sure not many people can manage that, but the art of storytelling, because at the core of it is your love for reading, which has kind of brought you here. So, how would you want to kind of pass on that legacy in a way that people can appreciate, understand, and adapt to it?
One is, of course, that, as I have learned, people learn by reading. So if I'm telling stories, there are people who are listening to it, who are reading, and that itself tends to inspire them. My message, I don't know if any women, children, whoever are going to see this program, is that you must indulge yourself and allow yourself to do things which are not necessarily going to directly contribute to your grades. I think my grades came about not because I worked very hard at them. I did work reasonably, but because I was doing all this external reading.
So, what comes around about is that reading is at the core of where you are today, and a very very interesting thing, and a very uh, indulging as well as enriching habit that we can all build. This is very inspirational, very interesting conversation that we've had. Thank you once again to agree to be part of Story Talkies, and we wish you all the best for your new book, and we look forward to the next one.